keep your answers short. Keep your answers short. Shorter than yesterday. Okay.
This isn't Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Okay.
Hi, good to see you. All right, sir. Yes, sir. Hi there. Well, my goodness, Brenda. Didn't know you were going to be here.
Yeah, it's like they want you in the middle.
Oh, this is fine.
They want you in the middle.
I think my mic is on. Hey, how are you? My mic is on.
Testing, check.
How you been doing? You been good?
Well, I'd like my mic off so we can talk, but he needs to turn my mic off. Everything I say can be heard.
Stop saying.
Hey, now.
Yes.
Charlie Reese. Yeah, after.
So I'm gonna go sit over there with the crowd.
This time I'm going to ask that everyone be seated if you have not already. Congressman Price and staff, School for Creative Studies teachers and students, distinguished guests, and to those joining us via our Durham Public Schools live stream today, good afternoon. My name is John Dixon. As the interim principal, I'd like to welcome you all to the School for Creative Studies. For those of you who may not know, the vision of our school is there is no box, but we are here today to discuss a very real box, the ballot box, and the importance of voting and voter registration. One of the primary purposes of the public school system is to provide our American community with an educated citizenry. And one of the most important duties of a citizen is exercising the right to vote. Here at the School for Creative Studies, as evidenced by our commitment to today's event, we believe in providing our students the opportunity to become better educated about the issues that impact them now, as well as later in life, as well as the chance to meet those community, state, and national leaders that are representing them in Durham, North Carolina, and in these United States of America. Our mission at the School for Creative Studies is oftentimes referred to as the 4 C's, to foster creativity, collaboration, communication, and community. It's important to note that each of the C's is not possible without the former. Creativity leads to greater collaboration among people. Collaboration results in increased communication. And when we truly communicate, we act as a healthy and functioning community. Therefore, our ultimate mission at the School for Creative Studies is the building of an educated community of informed and educated students and citizens. And events like today, with special guests like Congressman Price, help to ensure that our young folks are well educated, informed, and prepared to do their civic duty for this community. So again, from the whole School for Creative Studies family, thank you to Congressman Price and his staff for joining our school community today. Thank you for your commitment to helping this community of young minds to grow, learn, and become better citizens. And thank you for your support in helping us to achieve our ultimate mission here at the School for Creative Studies. Thank you. At this time, I would like to invite Mr. LaVon Barnes, our SCS Young Male Achievers Advisor, to the podium for a very special introduction.
No, I'm just playing. Good afternoon, everybody. This is definitely a special occasion, a historic occasion, right here at the School for Creative Studies, simply because we do have, it's rare to be in the presence of a federal congressman, yet alone sometimes your local public officials as students. And so I would like to start introducing some of the officials that we have here, and I'll introduce Congressman Price last. Students, if you'd like to stand, please, after I say your name. We have City Councilman Charlie Reese here. We have our Board of Education, Miss Minnie Fort Brown here. Representing Durham Public Schools, Miss Jackie Ellis. I'm sorry. Blame it on the head, not the heart. Also representing our school board, Miss Natalie Byer here. Seated behind me in the lovely red is representing our Vice Chairman of the Durham County Commissioners, Miss, Lord have mercy, I know. It's the nervousness of Miss Brenda Howerton. I knew that's what it was. And behind me, the gentleman in the blue, he is in charge of the Durham Affairs of Black People, right? Durham Committee Affairs of Black People, Mr. Omar Beasley. I promise you that we'll edit all of this, all right? We're gonna edit all of this. And obviously, I will introduce Congressman Price in a second. And for those of you who do not know who I am, I'm Coach LaVon Barnes. I don't like to be called Mr. because I'm not that old yet. All right, so Congressman David Price represents North Carolina's 4th District, a rapidly growing research and education-focused district that includes parts of Alamance, Orange, Durham, Wake, Harnett, Chatham, and Cumberland counties. He received his undergraduate degree at UNC Chapel Hill and went on to Yale University to earn a Bachelor's of Divinity and a PhD in political science. Before he began serving in Congress in 1987, Price was professor of political science and public policy at Duke University. He is the author of 4 books. He's the author of 4 books on Congress and the American political system. Congressman Price currently serves on the House Appropriations Committee and is the ranking member of the Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development Appropriations Subcommittee. He is also a member of the Appropriations Subcommittees covering Homeland Security, military construction, and Veterans Affairs. He is a recognized leader in foreign policy, co-chairing the House Democracy Partnership, which he initiated to help strengthen parliaments in emerging democracies. In North Carolina, Congressman Price's constituents know him as a strong supporter of education, accessible health care, affordable housing, clean air, and waste and improve transportation alternatives. Congressman Price is a native of Irwin, Tennessee. He and his lovely wife, Lisa, live in Chapel Hill and are the parents of 2 children and proud grandparents of a grandson born in 2006 and a proud grandparent of a granddaughter born in 2009. With SES, let's show him much love, our Congressman David Price.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Good job. Thank you. Thank you. All right, thank you. Boy, what a nice welcome. And thank Mr. LaVon Barnes for that very, very kind introduction. Thank your principal, your faculty members, and your administrative staff, including Anita Neville, who I know from way back. And thanks to all of you who have welcomed us here today. By us, I mean me and Tracy Lovett, who is from Durham and runs our Durham office. And really, what a nice turnout of elected officials from all levels. I really didn't expect, we almost have a quorum here. Certainly a school board quorum. We could maybe decide a few things here, but I'm glad to be here with the fellow elected officials, and when it comes time for questions and answers, and I get a really tough one, I'll just hand it off to Charlie, okay, or to Brenda, and we'll see. Between us, we can probably come up with some answers, because a lot of these issues that we're talking about, and the election that we're going into this fall, it's not just about national politics. It's not just about electing a president, but it's also about the direction of North Carolina, and for that matter, the direction of Durham and Durham County. So there's something for all of us to talk about and to think about, and so I'm glad to have a little backup here as we attempt to deal with your questions and concerns. I can't say before Mr. Barnes started talking about this visit, I can't say that I knew a lot about the School for Creative Studies. I certainly know a lot more now, and it's an interesting and important concept. The having the grades 6 through 12 in a single school that has a special program and a special sense of excellence and achievement and teamwork. I mean, you're lucky to be in a school like this where you are valued and you can make a good contribution. And then on top of all that, we have the Young Male Achievers Program, which is something that not too hard to figure out who the Young Male Achievers are. Somebody did pretty well if they were selling gold ties, I'd say. But the Young Male Achievers gave me a nice welcome half an hour ago, and we talked a little bit before we came into this meeting. So, and I appreciate no more than I did about that organization too, and about the sense of service and the community outreach that has gone on. And I know that this fall, that outreach is going to have something to do with the election process. And it should. That's not to say that the organization is advocating for a specific candidate. Everybody will have their own preferences as to who their favorite candidate is. But one thing that we know is that in a democracy, people need to participate. People need to vote, and people need to advocate for the issues and the candidates that they believe in. So it's great to see the young male achievers, whatever else they're involved in, turning for these next 2 months to that election process, making sure people are registered and making sure that people understand the issues. I was telling them when we were discussing what it's like to register people to vote, how you're going to get into some interesting conversations. How can you miss it? You know, the official election campaign starts at Labor Day. Well, forget that. We've been campaigning for months. Can you remember when we weren't campaigning? It's a nonstop process. My wife and I started telling people years ago with a 2-year term for the Congress, you just don't ever need to take the bumper strip off. Just leave it on. Because just as soon as one election's over, you're into the next one. Anyway, that's just the way it is in this country. A lot of us think it'd be nice to have shorter campaigns. But we don't, and so people are very much absorbed in this, and so you're going to have some interesting conversations. And I hope that the net result of those conversations all over this great country are going to be to give us the kind of election outcome that lets us get past some of our divisions, lets us get past some of the partisanship, excess. There's nothing wrong with partisanship. We belong to parties and we believe in party programs. But there's something wrong with excess partisanship where we don't care about anything except our party's fortunes. That is destructive. So we need to move in this country toward an understanding that, yeah, we have our parties, we have our teams that we're on, but at the end, we're all Americans, and we're going to pull together for the good of the whole community. That's what I hope comes out of this election. So it's a great thing to be involved in this, and I wish you well as you reach out and make sure that everybody who's eligible will vote in this election, and not just vote, but also be an informed voter. Now, I think our main purpose here is to have a little exchange, so I'm not going to give you a lecture or a talk. I am going to say what I started to say with the young male achievers before we began. And that is that the kind of work you're doing in this school with a very special sense of mission, and especially the community service aspect of what you're involved in, that's really, really important. And I don't think you ought to feel like everything you do or the first thing you do has to be just earth-shaking. And you know, you can start in small ways. I visit a lot of schools, and I'm often asked, how did you get into politics? And or how do I get into politics? And you know, the answer is not that you wake up someday and to say, hey, I'm going to run for Congress, or I'm going to run for the city council. No, most people get into politics because they care about their community, and that starts early. You know, you all are students that have a lot of demands placed on you. People, your teachers, that people are always telling you what you need to do to measure up, what you need to do to meet expectations. But you know, you reach a point in life where you don't want to just do that. You want to be more your own person, and you want to turn around and do something for other people. It's not just about me. It's not just about my learning and my achievement. It's also about what I can contribute to the community around me. And that's what you're doing with these Young Male Achiever projects. It could be something very simple. It could be getting food together for the food bank. It could be visiting some shut-ins in the hospital. It could be all sorts of things. That's the way to get started. And as you involve yourself with other people and in the community, then you're going to learn something about yourself and what you're good at and what you can contribute. And that's going to lead to other things. And that's how people get into politics. At least it's the way they should get into politics. Because politics at its best is not about anybody's power and influence. That's sometimes the idea we get. But politics in a democracy should be about what we do together. And we have leaders, but we also have citizens, and everybody needs to be involved. And the best way to start that I know is start where you are, in reaching out to other people, making a difference in your community. So it's extremely important. And that's why I'm so glad to be here today, and why I think it's very important to be here as we get into an election season. The other answer I give, if people ask me how I got into politics, I don't talk about when I decided to run for Congress. That's kind of an interesting story, to me anyway, and I'll tell you about it if you want me to, but that's not the real answer to the question. The real answer to the question is, how did I first figure out that there were some problems that needed to be solved, and that the way to work on them was to get into politics and use government for positive purposes? The answer to that would be the civil rights movement. And there are a lot of your family members, your parents, your grandparents, who would know exactly what I'm talking about when the sit-ins swept across this country. And Dr. Martin Luther King and other leaders were talking about the American dream and how we were falling short, and how some things needed to be changed, and need to be changed in a major way. And that vision caught hold, and people did some demonstrating, they did some sitting in, they did some running for office, they did some advocating. One of the greatest thrills I can remember as a young staff member in the U.S. Senate was crowding into the Senate gallery and watching the day the Civil Rights Act was passed. I remember thinking, it was just 3 years ago that I was in North Carolina trying to picket a theater. And here we are 3 years later with a civil rights law. What a wonderful success story for democracy. I wish other good things could happen that quickly. Unfortunately, they usually don't. So, whatever else I did in life, and this is true for me and a lot of people of my generation, we would never make the mistake of thinking that we could just forget about politics, or that we could just take cheap shots at government. Say, oh, government's no good, government's the problem. That's way too easy. The challenge is we all know government can do bad things, right? But we also know that government can do good things, and that when it comes to education and the kind of communities we need to build, you're going to need the right kind of government. So politics matters. You don't all need to run for office, but you do need to figure out what's going on and learn about the issues and debate among yourselves. And by the way, understand that sometimes your mind will change. So much of politics these days, it seems like people never change their mind. They all know what's right, and they're just out there shouting about it. Actually, we need to talk to each other and understand that our minds do sometimes need to change, and we'll figure out how to do things as a community. So I thank you for your interest in that, and I tell you, it's important. It's important to pay attention, look around you, and to begin serving the community and to begin participating in the political process. So I don't want to take any more time. I want to move right to our town meeting aspect. Is that what we're doing now? Sure. All right. So let's proceed with that.
Thank you, Congressman, for
Okay.
a very timely discussion on the importance of getting involved in politics. I know that some of our seniors here are going to be able to vote for the very first time. Raise your hand if you are able to vote during this upcoming election. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 potential
Good.
voters. For the rest of you, maybe in a couple of years, you'll have the opportunity to register. You can register when you're 18, and then vote when you get the opportunity. My name is Mauricio Pantoja, and I am the History Department Chair here. I'm going to moderate the discussion. Our first question comes from Alex Gaines. Where are you, Alex? Alex is in line of becoming our first valedictorian here at SES.
Oh,
and
good.
she's interested. She's interested in knowing a little bit more about the issues that affect the LGBT community. She's prepared a question for you.
Hello. North Carolina recently passed a law that prevents transgender people from going to the public restrooms corresponding to the gender they identify with. What's your position on this bill, and have you made any concrete steps to address the issues arising from this?
Well, we're getting right into it. That's not an issue on which too many people don't have an opinion these days. But I am deadly serious about it when I say I think that is a terrible piece of legislation. And I think it's unnecessary. I mean, the city of Charlotte passed a local ordinance which said that people could use whatever restroom in public facilities, they could use whatever restroom they identified with. That's what we do anyway. It's common sense. It's also fair and, treats people with dignity and decency. So the state legislature, some people get all worked up about this and decide they not only need to do this in the regular legislative session, they actually need to come to Raleigh and have a special session costing hundreds of thousands of dollars just to turn back that Charlotte ordinance and to enact an unenforceable, nonsensical requirement that you're going to use the bathroom whatever's on your birth certificate, no matter what you've done or what's happened to you since. It's a very mean-spirited solution to a non-problem. Now, I'm going to be really brief about this because it is complicated, and how we're going to fix it is complicated. But there are challenges in the courts to this, and I think those challenges may well succeed. There also are a lot of people protesting, including businesses, including people that were planning to have conventions in North Carolina. Even the All-Star basketball game has been moved because people do not want to do anything that seems like they're endorsing or even that they are indifferent about this law. So there's some political pressures that I hope will build up and will lead to the law being modified or changed. The changes that have come so far are totally inadequate. There are other aspects to this that I don't need to go into. What we've discussed, what I've said is the heart of it. There are other aspects about local government's authority to do things they want to do that the legislature took away. So there's a lot wrong with this. And when I say there's a great concern about the direction North Carolina is taking, that's going to play out in this fall's election. That's number one on the list, the bill you're talking about.
We have another question from one of our other seniors here, Shemaya. She's interested in knowing a little bit more about global warming, and she's also prepared a question for you.
Hello.
Hey.
As you know, the U.S. is only one piece of the carbon pie when it comes to climate change. And countries such as Russia, China, and India continue to produce large amounts of CO2. What do you propose the U.S. should do to reduce carbon emissions beyond our borders?
Well, that's a very big question that I'll try to answer very, very briefly. But there's no single simple thing that we need to do. We need to do lots of things. You suggest that this is an international problem, and it sure is. My wife and I were in China earlier this year, and we went out in Beijing on one of those bad air days. And I tell you, it's just as bad as they say it is. You know, we were out in the air in that city for about 1 hour, and we were with some other people, and within an hour, our eyes were red and noses were running. I mean, it's terrible. So China has its own reasons for wanting to address this, but it is an international problem. And it's not going to work if just the U.S. or just one country or another changes their practice. We're going to have an international agreement. And that's one of President Obama's main achievements, that he got a good start in that area. It's not a perfect agreement, but it is a good start. And for the first time, the U.S. and China are working together on this. Secondly, we need in our country to adopt more, adopt practices that reduce the emission of greenhouse gases that are heating up the atmosphere. This summer we're living through right now is the hottest summer on record. I think it's 9 out of the 10 hottest years on record are in the last few years. It's a big problem for our country. So we really need a comprehensive approach of the sort that President Obama proposed to either impose a carbon tax or some system for limiting emissions overall. I'm afraid our Republican friends have opposed that. So in the meantime, we need to do more targeted things like promoting solar energy and wind energy, like promoting conservation, like making cars more efficient, more miles per gallon, and so on. Just because we can't do everything doesn't mean we shouldn't do specific things. So it's a big issue, and I would predict this. I won't be around to know if this is right. But I bet 100 years from now, when people look back and think, what were they thinking? I think this will be the main issue people will wonder about. Why did we not do more?
Immigration has taken a center stage in the general election. Nandi here is interested in knowing a little bit more about the topic.
Good.
Hello, my name is Nandi, and on your website you indicated in regards to the immigration process that we must enact a comprehensive, pragmatic program that attacks all aspects of the problem. Could you please elaborate on that statement and expand upon what your plan would be?
Yes, this is another really tough issue, and it happens to be a big issue in the presidential election because you know some of the things Donald Trump has said about immigration. Hillary Clinton supports the kind of approach that I talk about on my website, which is a comprehensive approach. What that means is just what it says, that you can't just set up border controls. You can't just deport people here and there. You can't just let in the folks who the big companies out in RTP need for their workforce. You know, you can't just let in the farm workers. You need to work together on a comprehensive approach so that we treat people fairly, so that we have the workforce we need. And you ask anybody, not just in agriculture, but in the hotel industry, the restaurant industry, construction industry, where they would be without immigrant labor, and they'll say we'd be nowhere. You know, we need these workers. Now, we need people to obey the law. We need people to obey the law, and we need people to come into our country in an orderly way. And if people abuse the privilege of being here, if they do things that harm other people, if they engage in criminal behavior, then they should be out of here. That's who we should deport. That should be the first priority for deportation, is people who have harmed other people. But if someone wants to come here and work and raise their family, there need to be orderly procedures for letting them do that.
One of the things I ask my students at the beginning of class is, tell me something you learned, you've read, or saw in the news. And the issue of gun violence comes up frequently. I have a student, Willow, who is interested in knowing more related to that issue.
Okay. So the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, is considered an American value. So what can we do to reduce that without infringing on that right?
Okay, that's a good way to put the question, because there are legitimate uses for firearms, and some people interpret the Second Amendment as giving individuals a right to bear arms. Other people think, no, that's about a militia. It has interesting language in there that you can dispute. But anyway, I don't think have much disagreement in this country that if someone wants to have a hunting rifle or a weapon for self-protection or for sporting purposes, and they're not abusing that privilege, then we shouldn't be interfering with them. On the other hand, people who are shooting up our streets, and we're talking here not just about mass shootings, but about daily shootings. There have been a couple in the Triangle here the last week. It's just happening all the time. People who should not have weapons. You know, it's one thing to be hot-headed and to have arguments with people and to be hard to get along with. It's another thing entirely if you have a weapon doing that. And you don't have much self-control. You don't have much self-discipline. You know, something that would be just a quick disagreement can become fatal. A gun changes everything. So all of us have an interest in keeping guns out of the wrong hands. Criminals, people engaged in domestic violence, people who have dangerous mental illnesses. You just cannot have a system where these people can go out to a gun show and nobody's even going to check their background. I mean, I just think it's way past time for our country to make sure the background check system covers everybody, and to make sure that people who are on terrorist lists or otherwise we have good reason to think they are dangerous people, that we don't let them get weapons.
Okay, I got it. Congressman, I know we're hitting you with the heavy issues. I got a lighter question. We do have some seniors, but now I want to give you a middle school. This is Carly Anstrom. She's an 8th grader. I think she has a really good question for you. Here you go.
If you could have a different career or work in a different political office, what would it be and why?
Oh, my goodness. I'm going to ask the others to answer that too. We all have dreams about what another life would be. By the way, I had a very satisfying life as a college teacher. I know Duke may not be everybody's favorite school, but you know, it's a good school. And I went to Carolina too, so I have you covered on that. But I love my career as a teacher, so I'm lucky I've had 2 careers. I like what I do now. I've asked for the job, even though it's not a piece of cake every day. It's a challenging job and one that I am running to keep, obviously. I tell you, in another life, what I would probably do is be a foreign service officer. I think I'd really like that. I think I'd like to learn languages and learn about foreign policy in other countries and work for the U.S. abroad. I do a lot of traveling with our House Democracy Partnership, where we're working with parliaments in other countries. So I see a lot of people working in those places and raising their families out all over the world. And I think sometimes, you know, if I had another life to live, maybe that's what I'd do. It's an interesting question, though. Maybe Brenda has an idea. What would you do? Okay. Charlie, what do you think?
All right, Congressman, they would like you to fix your mic just a little bit. Hopefully
Okay.
they can hear you. I know the echoes in the gym are just off.
All right, I just asked Charlie to shout out. In another life, what would you
Charlie.
like to do?
I thought you said Carly.
Hi, everybody. Again, I'm Charlie Reese. I'm on the City Council. I wouldn't want to run for anything else. I'm not running for anything else. I like the job I have a lot because it lets me live at home. I don't have to live in Washington. I don't have to live in Raleigh. I have to live right here in Durham. But I always wanted to be an actor. I always wanted to, be in the movies or maybe on Broadway if I could sing, which I can't. So I always thought that was kind of cool. Performing is neat. Thanks a lot.
You know, when I was a kid, I used to say I wanted to be 2 things. I wanted to be a baseball player and a preacher. I was going to be a baseball player when I was young, and then I was going to be a preacher. Turned out I wasn't either one. That's the way it goes sometimes.
All righty. Charlie, you sure you don't want to sing? Okay. We have a sixth grader. Her name is Chandler Cook, and she has a very important question that all of us teachers really want to know.
Why aren't teachers getting paid a lot of money in schools?
It's a great question.
You're going to need to. It's about teachers, but I didn't get the question. I'm sorry.
She asks, why are teachers not getting paid a lot of money in schools?
No, well, that is a good question. And speaking of big issues, that's one of the things that we're fighting over in North Carolina this fall. It's just, honestly, it's a major issue. How much we're honoring teachers and paying them. Paying is part of honoring, you know. And also how committed we are to the public schools, including what you might say experimental schools like this one, schools that do it a little differently, and you know, give a public education a good name. I come at this question from experience. My parents were both school teachers. My mother taught English in high school. My dad taught biology and was school principal. But as he had to raise a family and he had to leave teaching, he had to leave what he loved and what he was good at in order to make enough money to support our family. And this was in Tennessee, and I don't think it's that bad in North Carolina right now, but we're getting there. We're getting to the point where people find it very hard to support a family on a teacher's salary. So I saw that in my own family, and I have ever since tried to make sure that we honor teaching. There's nothing else we want to do in education that matters if you don't have good, dedicated teachers. And so teachers need to be well trained. We need to have high expectations of our teachers, but they also need to know that they're going to be compensated, and they're going to be honored in proportion to the contribution they make to all of us. So the federal government doesn't pay teacher salaries, so I should say that. This is a decision that's going to be a state and local decision. So there are other things the federal government can do to help recruit teachers and train teachers, but you talked about teacher salaries, and that's going to be mainly a state and local issue, but it's an extremely important issue, and it's one of the things we're fighting about this election.
Thank you, Congressman. We have a seventh grader. His name is Dylan Lemire, and he has a question about college affordability.
College costs continue to skyrocket, and by the time I attend college, I would need over $50,000 per year. What can be done to make it affordable for every person who wants to continue their education?
Well, that also is a big issue we've been talking about at the state level and nationally. I'm going to give you a short answer, but you shouldn't think that it's a simple problem, because it isn't. There are some things that colleges and universities need to do to get their costs down so they don't have to charge as much. Okay, a whole bunch of things in that department. But in terms of how individual students pay for college, you first of all need to have a lot of options available. For some of you, that will be community college, which is very inexpensive. For others, you can be part of the great North Carolina State University system, and we need to keep costs down there, and we are pretty well keeping those costs contained, but it's a big challenge. And then there are the private schools, which are much more expensive. So it's not one size fits all. Each of those options is going to be right for some people, and one of the things to consider is how much you can pay. There's some people who think we should just promise a free college education for everybody. Some people in the presidential campaign were saying that. I really don't think we can do that. And if I had some money to do good things with, I would do a lot of things. I would support college education for middle class and lower income people. But I think some people with more income, their families can bear more of the burden. That's just fair. And there are other things that we need to do in housing and transportation and other areas. You can't just spend it all on higher education. I think borrowing money is part of the solution, but I think we need better Pell Grants and other scholarships that will especially let lower income students have more paid for and have to borrow less. I also think that loans themselves need to be reformed. So you're paying a reasonable interest rate, and if you get into a low-income job after college, they give you a break on how you pay your loan back. So loans are part of the solution, but people are borrowing way too much these days. So we need to reform the loan program as well.
Okay, I have a question that's near and dear to my heart. I'm going to see if I can get it out of him. You graduated from Carolina, but you got your master's in divinity from Duke. This Duke or Carolina? I got to ask you.
Well, I didn't get my divinity degree from Duke. Yeah, I got it up at Yale University, and that's where I went for my PhD. So sorry to disappoint you. But Duke versus UNC, you think that's the first time I've been asked that question?
I know it's not the first time, but if this could be the first time you actually give an answer.
Well, good luck with that. I keep my head down. When they're playing each other, I keep my head down. Otherwise, I'm for you.
I tried. Mr. Pantoja, question.
We have another question about college affordability. A lot of our seniors are looking at colleges, and there's a specific program they want to know more about. Elijah?
So on the topic of college affordability, of course, college tuition has been increasing steadily over the years, and certain families have a still stagnant income concerning minimum wage. So it's becoming increasingly more difficult to afford colleges, and some states are proposing free community college, but North Carolina isn't one of those states. The legislation hasn't been entered here, so is there any way we could make that program available? Are there any repercussions you see in it?
Yeah, I think that community college level is especially important to try to make sure everybody has access. And maybe it doesn't need to be totally free, but a family with normal income, you ought to be able to go to community college those first 2 years. Then you work out maybe other arrangements for the second 2 years. So how would it be for community college just to be like high school, to be totally free? That may be where we end up. Because I tell you, there aren't too many jobs you can get these days with just a high school diploma. Most of the good jobs out there, you got to have about 2 years past high school at least. So I'd like to see us work with that. We may not be able to do it all at once, but I tell you, there's nothing more important in the overall economic picture in our state than these community colleges. You know how great they are and what kind of good training they give. So we need to work on it. The other thing you said, I should have said earlier, and that is, this isn't just a matter of getting college costs down or getting scholarship money more generous. It's also a matter of helping people increase their take-home pay so that they could afford college or the other things they need. And there's nothing more basic than raising the minimum wage. For crying out loud, we have a minimum wage of $7.25 in this country. We haven't raised it for years and years. And of course, if you raise the minimum wage, then other wages up the scale tend to go up as well. So we certainly need to raise the minimum wage. And we also need to work in other ways on improving our economy and making good jobs and good training available for people so they can take home more pay, and then they have more options for lots of things they want to do. So that's part of the answer too, I think.
A large portion of our students are African American, and a lot of them want to know more about the Black Lives Matter movement. We have a question from Kana here.
Hi, I was wondering, what's the best way to reduce incidents of police shootings, especially of Black Americans?
I'm sorry, I missed.
Oh, I'm sorry. What's the best way to reduce incidents of police shootings with Black Americans?
Well, it's a really important question, and if any of the other elected officials want to chime in, we would welcome that. I think we have a lot of evidence that confrontations with the police are likely to get out of hand, or often do get out of hand. And these cases are coming to light, partly because people have video cameras. These cases are coming to light that show that this problem is more widespread than we might have realized, or that many people in the community will tell you they have known all along. But for the wider community, you know, it's kind of a wake-up call that we got a problem here. So I think community dialogue, the community coming together the way that has been happening certainly in Raleigh after the incidents over there, where the police and the community are in constant discussions, and then there needs to be good training for the police, so that the police aren't just trained in how to use firearms or how to handle a tough situation, but they're also trained in doing that in a way that reduces the chance of any kind of violence or any kind of misunderstanding or any kind of confrontation. So I think a lot of people now are understanding that including the police organizations, that they really need to have the kind of training that makes them very sensitive to these situations that might arise, and you learn how to de-escalate them so that they don't become confrontations. So community dialogue, communities taking this on and not sweeping it under the rug, but talking about it, having good relationships within the community, but then also making sure your police are well trained.
I know that all of your questions, we've got plenty of questions that we want to ask the Congressman. A lot of them will not be able to be heard today, but I've been assured that we'll collect those questions, and the ones that we did not get to ask the Congressman, we'll get an answer from you, for that particular question. So I got one more question, and then we're going to try to take a senior photo with our first senior class, because I think that's important that they get to have their moment.
By the way, who are the seniors?
We're the seniors. If you're a senior, raise your hand.
Congratulations.
The first senior class in the history of the School for Creative Studies.
All right.
Number one. So, Devin Shalon, 6th grade, come in, stand up. She has a great final question for you.
Of all the presidents the U.S. has had, who's most inspiring to you now, and who was it when you were a child? Why?
Oh, my.
We ask you the tough questions.
There again, we'll let other people chime in. Okay. All right, that's a really tough question, but I'll give you my answer. Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln, partly because of what a remarkable story he had. I mean, he started from nothing. I mean, he was raised in the frontier of America with very, very few advantages. Taught himself reading by candlelight. I mean, you know the story. That this man should turn into the leader he was, taking this country through the Civil War and offering such a generous vision, even to the other side in the Civil War. Such a generous vision of what this country could be and should be. You know, it's just almost unbelievable that Abraham Lincoln turned out to be the kind of man he was. And by the way, he wasn't always as impressive as he was toward the end of his presidency. He grew and he learned. That's also impressive about him. Not everybody does that. Some people get set in their ways and are not open to new ways of looking at the world. So that's my answer. Years ago, who would it have been? I guess most kids would say George Washington, or I don't know. My wife and I grew up in very different families. My wife's family worshipped Franklin Roosevelt. My family couldn't stand Franklin Roosevelt. I later learned better. I think I'm more on her side now. of that question because he was a great president. But anyway, we all have these experiences. But now that I know a little more history and I've looked at it, I'd say Abraham Lincoln. Who would you guys say?
I'd have to say my president right now, President Obama.
That's a good answer. How about our school board members?
Definitely Barack Hussein Obama for his respect for diversity, for his respect for making all Americans have health care with the Affordable Health Care Act, for his respect on immigration. So definitely Barack Hussein Obama.
So I have to also agree with my colleagues. Barack Obama has been an inspiration to me and my children. And on a Durham Public Schools field trip 8 years ago, we went to the inauguration with Durham Public Schools students, and it was a historic day for our country. And I still am not over the sadness of the Obamas potentially leaving the White House, but their family and the grace and dignity that they show every day under so much negativity has been inspiring.
Well, I love Barack Obama too. He's why I ran for public office. He's really inspiring. When I was a kid, my favorite president was John F. Kennedy, who's from Massachusetts. I went to college in Massachusetts, so did he. And I like that he was asking people to go into public service in a time when it wasn't particularly popular or thought of as a good idea. He encouraged young people to get involved. And the one president I don't think gets enough credit is George Washington. My 8-year-old last year, she's in second grade now, but in first grade, she came home and told me George Washington was her favorite president. And I said, why? And she said, because he didn't have to wait. He was first. He didn't have to wait to be president. He was first. But I think the great thing about Washington was everything he did set a precedent going forward. Every experiment he made in how we govern ourselves, how we set up our country, how to turn over power to the next administration, those things weren't written in stone. Those things could have gone a completely different way. And it works the way it does now, and it worked great because of what he did.
Yeah.
So I really like Washington a lot.
You know, those are interesting answers, and of course, I was absolutely thrilled by President Obama's election and by the way he's worked in office with me and other members of Congress. What you come to realize, and as you study history, you will understand this, is that question is really harder than it sounds, because the greatness of a president has to do with the times in which they serve as well as their own personal qualities. And so a president who takes you through the World War, a president who sees the country through the Civil War, a president who kind of sets the pattern for everything that follows, like Charlie just said. You know, those are things that call for greatness. That doesn't mean the president's always going to be great, but there are situations that we face where we need leadership. And that's what we have to think about as we elect a president for the next 4 years, you know. What is going to have to be done in the next 4 years? What kind of situations are we going to face? You don't know that. So it's always a combination of the person and the situation that makes for greatness. And I would agree that President Obama has taken this country in some very, very positive directions. I also have to say that it was easier for him to do that when he had a cooperative Congress. And even the best intentioned of presidents can be blocked and frustrated, and there's been some of that too. So I'm glad you asked the question, and I think this is a good year to be thinking about greatness and the need to hopefully continue a tradition in our country of leadership that makes democracy expand, always expand. Always expand. You know, when this country started, you wouldn't be voting in this country if you didn't own property. You had slavery. You had women not able to vote until 100 years ago. And even after slavery was ended, you had decades of discrimination. And so we go we hopefully expand democracy in each new generation. So that's what our president's got to think about too. What's the next step? What's the next step in an American story of inclusion and opportunity? And shame on us if we ever give up on that vision. Thank you all so much.
All right. Let's give Congressman David Price a round of applause. Let's go. Come on, let's show some more love than that. Give Congressman David Price a round of applause. On behalf, again, of the School for Creative Studies and on behalf of on behalf of the student body, but most importantly on behalf of our young male achievers, we thoroughly thank you for gracing us with your presence this afternoon, and we hope that we can do it again. This is what I need everybody to do really quickly. We're going to take a senior photo, and it's got to be done quick. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the photo here. We're going to move these chairs. So my YMA guys, you can start moving these chairs. Move the chairs. Somebody move this podium. The congressman will be in the middle. And I only want our senior class, unfortunately, not everybody. Yeah, move that. When you're the first, you get the first choice. You get all the goodies. So seniors, can I get you on each side of Congressman Price? So if he's here, each side, that'd be great. Who's going to take this photo? That's a great question. Who? Jorge, he's taking the photo? I'm sorry. Man, if you don't.
John, get your tall self out of here.
Congressman, if I could get you in the middle. Hey, let's do this. Shorter people, shorter, less vertically inclined, more towards the front here. Congressman gets right here in the middle. Everybody's going to look straight ahead at Jorge. Hopefully everybody can be seen. It's too wide. Okay, how about this? You guys scooch in the corner right here. Scooch. How we looking? We're good? No. All right, everybody, we're going to count on 3. Look at Jorge. 1, 2, 3. One more. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. How we looking? Good? Thank you, Congressman. I appreciate you.